Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Sharon Shapira and I am the Digital Health Sector Manager at Startup Nation Central. One of our goals in 2018 is to create a bridge between the Israeli startups and Houston, Texas Medical Center. Why we basically choose Houston and Texas Medical Center. So while most of the Israeli companies in the healthcare field target the US and put a lot of efforts in New York and Boston, Texas Medical Center is the largest medical complex in the world, with more than 50 hospitals and clinics. In addition, while New York and Boston are very crowded with healthcare technologies trying to enter there, we found in Houston a real opportunity and willingness to implement innovation. We are now building this bridge between the Israeli startups and Houston in 3 parallel initiatives. One of them is a collaboration with TNCX, the accelerator program of Texas Medical Center. We found it to be one of the most effective ways to navigate this massive medical complex in Houston. And we also found it the right vehicle to approach and get connections to the right people in each medical institute. I'm pleased to introduce Gwen Ballantyne, the Digital Health Innovation Lead at TMC Innovation Institute, who is going to elaborate on the accelerator. We will then have a Q&A session, so please feel free to write us your questions during the session. Gwen, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, and thanks everybody for your time and attendance today. I'd also like to introduce our digital health analyst, who is David. So he also works here with me, so he'll help answer any questions you guys or you may have heard from him in the past as well. So the two of us are leading the digital health effort over at TNCX. We work not only with the digital health companies, but also the med device companies that come through the program. And so I'm really excited to share with you a little bit more about TNCX. So I'm going to share my screen for a little presentation. So, all right. So as Sharon said, we are the largest medical center on planet Earth. So we encompass 21 different hospitals and actually now over 60 member institutions, all within a 2.5 square mile radius. So given that number, our throughput is a little over 10 million patient visits per year now. And we see over 180,000 surgeries, and the patient bed number has actually increased in the past year to over 9,500 patient beds. We employ over 120,000 people here, mostly clinical staff, and the $2 billion in extramural funding really speaks to the clinical campus, but also the research campus. So NIH, NSF, SBIR money has a heavy influx into the Texas Medical Center as well. So some of the member institutions, many of them you may have heard of, are leading in their fields. Texas Children's has been ranked one of the top children's hospitals in the country for the past 5 years. Everyone, I think, is familiar with MD Anderson leading the charge in cancer therapeutic and treatment, resides on our campus under the UT Health System. CHI St. Luke's, Harris Health, and Houston Methodist, all big names that, again, reside in our backyard. So this is just a snapshot of some of the clinical campus, but also the research campus that I mentioned before. And so to give you a little bit of background on TMC, so who we're employed with, the TMC is not a hospital or a clinic. The TMC actually was a landowner, so we own the land that all those hospitals sit on, which we lease to them. And then we in turn own the parking infrastructure. And so we're a not-for-profit, sort of self-funded and self-sustained by revenue generated from those types of programs like parking. We manage landscaping, security, and I think in the past also managed some of the laundry services. But about 4 years ago, TMC CEO was instated, Dr. Bobby Robbins, who was a cardiologist, I believe, from Stanford, and he came in and said, we have all this money and we really need to reinvest it into something meaningful for our member institutions. And so we surveyed a lot of the CIOs, we surveyed a lot of the leading thought leaders across the TMC, and found that there were sort of 5 pillars embedded under each of the different institutes that we could collaborate on. And the one that came out of that first and foremost was TMC Innovation. And so Innovation was the first brick and mortar institute to be formed under the Texas Medical Center umbrella. Health policy has also come to fruition and is led by Dr. Tim Garson, a pediatric cardiologist out of Stanford as well. The Clinical Research Institute is up and running and is getting started. The goal there being a centralized IRB, so a way if a company wants to come in, large pharma, to run a clinical trial, they would be able to sign a singular IRB that would govern many of the different institutions, not have to sign individual ones with each of them. Genomics and regenerative medicine are ideations at this stage, just due to the fact that we're still sort of developing the strategic plan, but our key areas of collaboration and innovation we've seen across the TMC. And then the Collaborative Sydney Center I'll speak a little bit about is called TMC3. We did a large press release around that, and I'll tell you guys a little bit more about that program as well, which really speaks to, I think, the future growth of the Texas Medical Center. So the Innovation Institute is housed in the old Nabisco cookie factory. So if you think of Oreos, Manila wafers, a lot of those old cookies were made in the, I guess, in the building that we currently reside in now. It was renovated, I think, about 20 years ago and became administrative offices for MD Anderson. And then the Texas Medical Center took over about 4 or 5 years ago, renovated the space, and it now looks like something you'd probably find in Silicon Valley or Boston. But it's a large space, 700,000 square feet, which we totally own, and Innovation takes up about 100+ thousand square feet right now. And so I'll tell you a little bit about all these programs, but I just wanted to give you an overview quickly of what is housed under Innovation. It includes TNCX, which is what we're going to talk about mostly today, but we also have a BioDesign program, an X Plus program, a corporate sponsorship program as well under that umbrella. So TNCX is the accelerator program. So TNCX is currently in our 7th cohort. So again, like I mentioned, we've been around about 3.5 years now. We take 2 cohorts per year. So we run digital health in the spring. So the class that we're currently recruiting for and closing applications for next week will run every spring, and medical device runs in the fall. So we're actually getting ready to graduate our medical device class in November of this year. So if any of you are interested, I'll make sure that the live stream is sent to all of you so that you can view the demo day that will be happening in November for 23 med device companies. The program runs about 4 months. So in the spring, obviously that's starting in February and running through June. Med device cohort starts in August and runs through November. And then the biggest thing I think is up here at the top, which is really a unique aspect to our program, is that we don't charge anything for our companies to be a part of this program, and we don't take any equity. So it really is a no strings attached program. There's a lot of benefits to coming down here, and with the added sort of sugar on top that you don't need to pay to be here, and we don't take anything from your company. The overall goal is really to accelerate you into the medical center and help your company, and so we don't give or take anything in that process. The advisor network is pretty substantial now with 200+. All of them can be found on our website, but it does go deeper than that. So we have more than 1,000 advisors under the umbrella of TMC Innovation that we can tap into for our companies, both on the clinical side, but also on the side of business infrastructure, so lawyers, investors, et cetera. But I strongly encourage all of you to look at the website, take a look at the breadth and depth of people we have actively involved in TNCX. And so the way that the program is structured, again, like I said, is 4 months. How we kick that off, or I guess the requirement in terms of the company, is that we do require you to be on site, not for the entirety of the 4 months, but about 6 to 8 weeks. We do require somebody, one representative from your team, here on site in Houston. This is not just beneficial to us, but it's beneficial to you as a company. And in fact, we have an Israeli company in our cohort right now, a company called Monitor, and their founder and CEO, Tom, has been here for about 6 weeks or about 5 weeks now, and has traveled back and forth, but has really expressed sort of the benefit of being on site in Houston due to the simple nature of getting to set up meetings. You get more exposed to our ecosystem. You get a lot more out of the program. But for the traveling back and forth, just to give you an idea of what that entails, there's a upfront 3-week mandatory boot camp. And so the boot camp is pretty intensive. It's most days, every day, a lot of curriculum and programming, mentorship, and embedding you into the TMC hospitals. So you're required to be here for that. And then there is 1 mandatory week in the subsequent months after that. So for the digital health cohort, there will be a mandatory week in April, there will be a mandatory week in May, and then there's a mandatory about week and a half in June leading up to demo day, which I believe is June 7th for the upcoming class. So there's 70 plus curriculum sessions embedded in that as well. So those sessions range from writing term sheets and founders agreements to sales and marketing to product development, human factors, user interface, regulatory. We even have the FDA down here talking a little bit about the pre-cert program, which is focused on how the FDA will regulate and view digital technology in the US. And so the curriculum is pretty high level, but also particular to the group of companies we're catering to. So it's never the same from cohort to cohort, and we do sort of tailor it and personalize it based on the input of the companies coming in for that class. So to date, like I said, we've had 7 classes, and this doesn't include the class that is going on right now, these numbers, but X1, so TMC X1 through TMC X6, we've had 105 companies come through. They collectively have raised over $200 million, so that's both prior to the program, but also during the program. About 20% of that capital right there is raised during their time in the program, but also 6 to 8 weeks post, as diligence obviously takes time. But a lot of companies attribute their capital raises to their time and acceleration in TMCX. And then on top of that, the engagement. So the 150 plus really speaks to, I think, the fact that we're getting signed agreements, signed pilots, signed letters of intent on behalf of our companies within the medical center. So on average, that's about 2 to 3 per company. So, you know, it really is, I think, a unique place to be because you're getting traction here, but also accelerating entry into the U.S. market. So our international companies sometimes tend to be more successful just because they have, I think, a unique perspective as they come in and learn a lot from our program and in turn achieve a lot of traction with our institutes as well. So with that being said, like I had mentioned, those numbers prior didn't include our current cohort, but this is our current cohort. So this is 23 medical device companies, and you guys will notice down here on the bottom right is Monitor, the company that came to us from Israel and has been very successful in his time here as well. But this gives you an idea of sort of the fact that we are agnostic to the type of company and stage of company. So we have companies that are class 3 devices like Angiolutions, a device to help with AAA growth, all the way to class 1 solutions like Verticor and Adroit Surgical. Verticor is focused on back pain relief, and then Adroit Surgical is a novel laryngoscope to help visualize the airway for intubation. And then we also have some other devices that are a little more potentially consumer facing like SafCan, a device to help with impacted earwax, or Amina Health up here on the top right, which is a at-home device to help monitor ferritin or iron levels. And so I think when I say that we're agnostic to type of company, this really speaks to that. So we take companies in that we feel fit the medical center. So based on needs or conversations we've had with our clinical champions, we source and choose companies that we think will be the most successful. But then on top of that, we are agnostic to stage. So you can look at a company like Odin, who has raised less than $100,000, and then all the way up to a company called First Kind Medical, over here, which has raised $40 million, is an FDA-cleared product, but is looking to be within TMC to check additional indications for the use case of their device. So the cohesiveness of the cohort and the diversity of the cohort is something that we pride ourselves on, and is something we think really adds value to the program as a whole. So with that being said, I've thrown a lot of information at you guys, and I know that it's sometimes better to hear it from the horse's mouth. And so I have a quick video to show you, which really highlights our last digital health cohort, and they can speak a little bit more about their experience here.
I'm Eric Alverson. I'm the director of the TMC Innovation Institute. We just launched X06, which is our digital health class. The next 4 months, we run them through a curriculum, connect them with some of the advisors and mentors in our network, and get them plugged in over at the biggest medical center in the country.
So much expertise, so many different patient populations, all within this relatively small geographic area.
They create an environment where you have every opportunity to meet the people who are relevant to your business at the medical center, to make the right connections.
TMC has the capability of being able to take great technology and plug it into this ecosystem of the Texas Medical Center.
If you did this out of a lab, looking at a long academic road, if you did it purely as a startup, you'll never get access to the hospital. So it's only here you can do the best of both worlds. Come up with something new and work with clinical partners quickly.
We've got companies that have been around for 3 months, raised $100,000. Companies that have been around for 6 years, raised $50 million. Both of those extremes get something out of the program. I don't think that they're the wrong fit for what we're building here at TNCX.
TMC has really been a great introduction to Texas because through the mentor network, we can get connected to almost any health system in the state. In just a few weeks, you can have meetings with 15 to 20 potential partners. Having that type of access as an early stage company is truly fantastic.
What TNCX does is it brings you to the decision makers very, very quickly.
Getting access to the chief innovation officers, being able to talk about their problems, to make sure that we understand their issues, to engage in discussion with the clinician and the nurses and your customer at a very early stage. This was only possible through TMCX and their facility.
And then what we're seeing is the 21 hospitals and 59 organizations that make up the biggest medical center in the country, they're increasingly figuring out how to work with startup companies.
Everyone here is really eager to do innovative projects. The executives are enthused about using technology to help them achieve their goals.
We're learning what challenges they face in their systems and how to really work those issues out to build a scalable product. And that's what TNCX is helping us with.
The content has been from some incredible experts who give us tools that we can actually take away and apply.
In a short conversation with the right person, you can learn something that's going to save your company.
I wish I would have found TMCX much earlier in my process. It would have saved me a lot of time.
We actually have content geared towards how to be a healthcare company and how to do product development.
TMC as an incubator has lots of resources that really power our analyses. Without that, we couldn't do any of our proof of concepts.
TMC already have a joint IRB, plus they're about to invest in their clinical research institute, so they become a super site for clinical trials.
And we benefit from this kind of very unique support without TMCX. This interdisciplinary teamwork, I don't see that happening.
We've only been doing this for 2.5 years, and 3 of our companies have already been acquired for 10x plus multiples. We don't take any money from the companies. We don't take any equity from the companies. We truly believe that these folks are the sources of new innovations that are going to save lives and solve some major problems in healthcare, and there's no better environment in the country to do that.
So I hope that gave you guys a good overview of TMCX, and what that program is, and hopefully what some of you will consider applying for. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the BioDesign program and some of the others under innovation. So BioDesign is another program we have that really focuses on building a company from the ground up. So we take in 8 fellows from across the world, embed them into 2 teams, so either med device or digital health. We put them into the hospital systems to generate a bunch of needs, which they whittle down to 1, and spend the rest of a 1-year paid fellowship, hopefully creating a company around that need. And so to date, we're actually in our 4th year. We just started that, and we've had 4 companies of 6 actually form and create businesses and products, collectively raising now over $2 million, winning business plan competitions, attending other accelerators, and these are homegrown Houston companies, so really helping build the ecosystem as well. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning, we do have an incubator and co-working space, which the hope is that we bring in companies to TMCX, they want to stay, and so we do have a home for them outside of the accelerator program as well. It's a co-working and office space, same benefits as TMCX with access to the community, our advisor mentor network, our curriculum, and then also our corporate sponsorships as well. It is extremely affordable compared to the other office space in Houston. And we are at pretty much max capacity, so we are building more to accommodate even additional programs and people that want to stay and be a part of the ecosystem even post program. And then our corporate sponsorship. So one of the, I think we think of innovation and startups in healthcare in 3 pillars. We definitely have the clinical infrastructure. TMCX sort of provides the business and acceleration infrastructure, but industry is another piece that we're constantly thinking about and trying to evolve. And so we do have a robust partnership with Johnson & Johnson. J-Labs is actually right next door to us, literally in our backyard, and we work with them mostly through supportive companies. So if there's wet lab space, 3D printing, resources that J&J can provide, we've partnered with them to help support our companies. But they've also built the first ever Center for Device Innovation here in Houston, which focuses on incoming companies in medical device, but also to some extent digital technology or connected devices, where they can really look at them as a strategic fit, bring them into the Center for Device Innovation, and then potentially get right at first offer. And so there is obviously the allure of having J&J, one of the largest pharma companies in the world, as your partner, coming to be a part of our program. And then AT&T Foundry is actually one of, I think, 7 foundries across the country. It's the only one focused in healthcare. And so they do a lot of infrastructure support for our digital health companies. They also, again, have a prototyping space, 3D printing, and have worked with several of our digital health companies in various partnerships to sort of get the Powered by AT&T behind their logo. And then, as many of you probably know, Apple is extremely secretive, and so the relationship with Apple, we know very little about. We just know that we're sort of helping build out the care kit with potential rollout within, our patient population and our different institutes as well. So that's really a high-level overview of innovation and our programs there. I did want to give you guys a quick overview of TMC3. Just because it showed in that video and we've mentioned it, but it gives a high level vision to where TMC is headed. And so TMC3 really aims to link the clinical campus to the research campus. And right now it's actually a parking lot. So like I mentioned, we own all the parking lots. And so we're taking one of our largest parking lots in our backyard of the medical center and converting it into what we call TMC3. So TMC3, with the iconic double helix in the middle, will be a translational research campus to help formulate collaboration between our institutions even further than what we think we've already achieved. So you can see the double helix in the center, and then the building blocks on the side are actually for our institutes. So you can Google a press release with TMC and the launch of TMC3, and you'll see we've already signed Baylor, UT Health, Texas A&M, to sort of take over these various building blocks. And then there will be core shared facilities in the middle. So on the outside of this helix, there will be core shared facilities. So the hope is that we're going to really drive commercialization of novel tech that we know is sitting in these institutions, but also across barriers. So a Baylor physician or researcher may be working with an MD Anderson researcher or physician, and we'll be able to rapidly commercialize. It's also going to be an area to work and play, and so there will be a running track here. The blue is the running track. There will be a residential parking, a hotel, and a conference center as well. So again, we're really taking the best place to work and play to a whole new level with this initiative, which we think will cost around $2 billion. And so that's TMC3. The hope on the timeline there is to break ground probably next year with a final build out by 2022. So that's everything I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has or, provide more information as needed. But thanks everybody for your attention.
Thank you very much, Gwen, for your presentation. If you have any questions, so please feel free to write us the questions in the Q&A features at the bottom of the screen. I'll start with additional few questions just for everyone to hear. Gwen, can you please elaborate a bit about the accelerator's KPIs and how do you measure the success of the accelerator?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the ways that we measure it obviously is based on what I showed you guys, which is the number of pilots and agreements that the companies are able to sign during their time here. And so we manage that internally. So just to give you an idea of like our positions, right? So myself and a colleague of mine, Dr. Lance Black, is the med device lead. We actually split the companies when they come in. So we have 23 companies. I'm responsible for 12. Lance is responsible for 11. And we spend a large amount of time with those companies. So our program is extremely hands-on. We become an integral part of your team. So we manage your engagement with the hospitals, your engagement with our program, really everything to help move you forward. And so we're able to sort of track KPI that way. So we know if you're hitting specific milestones. We know if you're getting LOIs. We know if you're actually moving the needle in terms of the business. And we bucket that into multiple categories, whether that be product development, business development, team growth. It really depends on the company. And so we formulated some metrics around that to some extent, but then one of them is obviously funding raised, something a little more quantitative. But mostly it's around engagement with our institutes, its growth anywhere from 6 to 8 months post-program. And then there's a lot of, I think, other additional metrics embedded under that we collect based on the cohort.
Thank you very much for the answer. You mentioned before that you're stage agnostic. What, in your opinion, is the ideal stage for startups to join the accelerator?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, it depends on the company. Since if I think about the composition of most of our cohorts, I'd say probably about 60 to 70% are early to mid stage. So these are companies that are sort of in that prime point of logarithmic growth. They're sort of at that point right before influx. And so we find that they tend to get more out of the program than some of the later stage companies. With that being said, we have had some later stage companies that have been extremely successful in our program as well. So one of them is a company you guys might have heard of called Arteris. Arteris is a digital imaging software. It's actually the first to be cleared by the FDA for software as a medical device. And Arteris came to us. They had raised their Series A, or they were in the midst of raising their Series A. And so they were considered what we would call a later stage business. And then what happened was they really leveraged a lot of the relationships they built at TMC to then move on to a partnership with GE. And were able to close a Series B post TNCX, largely due to the traction and motivation that I think they got from being here. So yeah, I mean, the stage is we're agnostic because it really is what you put into it, right? It's what the company puts into it, and regardless of stage, I think anybody can benefit from being here.
Thanks. We have another questions from the audience. What is important to highlight in the application form?
Yeah, so we look for 5 main areas in the application. One of them is the clinical unmet need. So it's really important to convince us that there is an unmet need there. So keeping in mind, I've been at TMC for 2.5 years. My background, or a little over 2 years, my background is coming from the startup world. And so we see 200+ applications every 6 months. So think of us as the experts in terms of knowing that landscape. We know the market very well. And so we appreciate somebody who can really convince us that they've done their diligence on the market and the unmet need. So convincing us that there is a clinical need there is really important. And then on top of that, the second pillar that we look for is the innovativeness of the product. So is this something that is iterating on existing technology, or is this extremely disruptive? Either way, we're interested. It's just, sort of making the case for where you stand. The third pillar is go-to-market. So obviously in the digital health landscape, it's extremely busy and can be a lot of clutter. And so if you can convince us you have a unique market or a unique angle, we obviously don't want you to have everything figured out. It would defeat the purpose of you coming to the program, but we want something thoughtful that we feel we can build upon and that we feel like we can help you with as well. The fourth pillar is traction and funding. So do you have some traction in whatever form? And so, like I said, we've taken companies very early who have what we would call minimal traction, but enough that is compelling. And then you're here for 4 months. We don't want you to run out of runway. So we look for a little bit of funding to get you through the program with the hope that we'll build on that and raise some more capital for you during your time here. And then the fifth pillar, which I'm sure you guys are all bored of hearing, is team. So, it's a unique environment we've cultivated here. It's a very quick-paced program, and we're very close. So we look for people to be part of the family, right? So we always say that once a TMC company, always a TMC company. And so we look for people to join the family. And so we look for entrepreneurs that are motivated and driven, but are willing to check their egos at the door and really take advantage of what we're offering here, because we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. And so a match comes definitely from the team as well.
Thanks. Do you have any specific therapeutics area that you're interested in? And mental health, do you have also this category under your areas of interest?
Yeah, absolutely. If you take a look at if you take a look at our past digital cohorts, mental health was actually a huge focus for us. We took a company called Trait in our last one. We took a company called Sunrise Health, which was also a mental health company. We've taken a company called DOT, which was focused on childhood ADHD. We took a company actually called Lantern, which many of you may know because they actually recently closed their doors for operation. And it's actually a great case study to look at if you're in the mental health space, because they went direct to consumer and actually tried to go clinical and didn't adapt the business model appropriately, but it was, again, in the mental health space. So we have the Manager Clinic here, which is one of the most well-known mental health clinics in the state, and if not in the country. So it's definitely a huge focus for us. And personally, we actually really like that area. Our team really enjoys companies in that area. Outside of mental health, we focus a lot on hospital efficiency. So our hospitals are vast and massive and, of course, inherently inefficient. And so we look for, products and technology that can really help with that. How do we get patients more engaged? How do we help clinicians workflow? How do we help nurse turnover? Sort of all those tidbits, I think, fall under the umbrella of efficiency and, again, in process improvement. So those are some sort of key areas that we've thought about as well. But with that being said, we're still currently in sort of the needs assessment phase, so I envision that will change. But I do strongly encourage all of you to keep up to date on our website, our blogs, and everything, because we will be posting probably within the next week some key areas that we're interested in. But right now, we're pretty broad. But I would say process improvement, hospital efficiencies, digital therapeutics, and diagnostics are all something that we're really interested in. Big data plays, and obviously AI plays that are really interesting will come to the forefront as well.
Perfect. Last question. Oh, there's a few additional questions. First one, is it possible to engage with you other than participating in the program that you presented?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously want everyone to come to TNCX, right? We want everyone to apply. We want X to sort of be the landing ground because it does sort of force you into our ecosystem. With that being said, outside of TNCX, we do have the co-working space. And so a lot of our companies, if they don't want to be a part of TNCX, or maybe they're not at the right stage, or maybe they don't get into TNCX, we have space in our main space that allows you to rent a table. So you can come to open curriculum, you can talk to any of the staff Obviously, we're not wholly dedicated, but we're here to help. And so that's a great way to get involved as well. Definitely keeping in touch with us, asking questions is a great way to stay involved. X is just great because you get us. And I hate to sort of like toot our own horn, but we are fully dedicated to our companies. We open our networks. We work extremely hard to make sure that they get what they need while they're here. For co-working companies, we do help, obviously, if needed. It's just not the same amount of dedication, but you can still get a lot out of being here as well.
And are there any regulatory issues that need to be covered in advance for participating in the accelerator?
From a regulatory perspective, no. I mean, one of the goals is to sort of teach you regulatory to some extent when you come in. It is beneficial to do your own diligence and digging on what is expected and what is needed. But we have a wealth of resource to help answer that question as well, with former companies who are international that can give you an idea of what you may or may not need to know before you come here.
Okay, Gwen, thank you so much for your time. We will share now. I will share now my email address, so you feel free to approach me with additional questions, and I will direct it to Gwen as needed.
And I will, Sharon, I'll also share with you guys the link to apply. You can find it on our website, but I'll make sure I send that. So if you're interested in applying, the deadline is October 21st. So we are hoping that everybody will apply this week or ask any questions you may have this week as well. But I'll make sure that that's forwarded along, and so you can share that with everybody that attended.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.